Is this a movie?
Uh-huh.
Oh,
A video. So,
well,
as you can
that's
see.
my dad.
So, why don't you tell us about him?
Well, he was born in 1876 on a farm, and he was the first. Wait a minute. Yeah, 1876, 100 years after the Revolution, and not the Revolution, the
The
Independence.
Independence.
That's right.
Where was he born?
1876.
Where?
He was born on a farm northeast of New Richland, Minnesota. And he had, I think, about 6 half-brothers. And he had, that not to my remembrance, any sisters at all.
Was he the last child born?
No, he was not the last child born because his mother died, and she was remarried. And then those were the half brothers, and he was the first one in his family to go to college, and the first one. He went to the academy. The academy is the same thing as a high school. And he went to St. Olaf Academy, and then when he graduated from there, he went 2 years to St. Olaf College, at which time he had enough credits to go to medical school. So he left St. Olaf and went to medical school.
What did his dad do?
They were farmers. They raised horses. And the interesting thing is, and I wish to heck I had chased this down earlier, but when he was getting ready to go to college, he had to have some money. So a couple of his half-brothers, and maybe more, I don't know, and his dad drove a herd of horses over to Browns Valley, Minnesota, and sold them. And it's a possibility that he sold them to Elaine's background people, her grandparents, because they raised horses and raced them and did all that. So after they sold the horses they drove over there, they wired him to meet him at the railroad depot, I think Waseca, and my dad was there, and they handed him some money, and he got on the train and went to Rush Medical School College in Chicago.
Wow.
And that's how he got to the college. And he graduated from medical school in 1903, and he had a car, but he couldn't use it very much because the roads were no good. And so he had to engage a driver and some horses. He had 2 drivers, and each one had horses, and they had a buggies, and when he had to make a call out on the farm someplace, they went by horseback. Not horseback.
By buggy?
By buggy, that's right, carriage. And in the wintertime when it was so cold, they had a couple of big rocks, which they brought along with them in the farm, laid them on the stove, and they heated up, and that was how they kept warm.
On the buggy?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
and they had a bear rug. And I remember seeing that bear rug when I was a kid, but it disappeared. And that's how they kept warm, you know. And it wasn't a question whether you wanted to wear winter underwear. You had to wear it.
Mm-hmm.
And you had to have long coats and so forth. But then he was a physician there in Richland, and he did examine soldiers, I think, for the draft in World War I know he did in World War II, but I think I remember him doing it in World War I. In fact, someplace in our stuff there's a certificate thanking him for doing that. And then he went from examining draftees to active duty, and he went out to Fort Camp Meade, it was then, in Maryland. And if you remember, when we drove from Washington down to
Williamsburg.
We went by a sign that said, to the right, off from the freeway, there was Camp Meade. Now Camp Meade, then Camp Meade, but in the earlier years, I think Fort Meade.
So is that where he served during World War I?
Yes, yeah, and he was there as a physician, and if I remember correctly, you know, a person should have written some of these things down. I can't remember if it was 3 or 4 days during the flu epidemic that he didn't even get to bed.
Oh, that was the great flu epidemic of, what, 1918 or something?
Somewhere around there, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So he was treating people.
Yeah, they had a lot of flu. Excuse me, a lot of flu. So that's...
What did he do did he get out of the service in 1918?
Yeah. And he went back to the New Richland in general practice. He had a chance. I saw the letter, and I know it to be true. He was offered a position at Mayo Clinic, but he liked to go fishing at St. Olaf Lake, which is 4.5 miles east of Richland. And he even built a cottage there himself. He had help from people that he worked with.
It was called Lake Olaf?
St. Olaf Lake.
St. Olaf Lake.
Yeah. Yeah. When Bill was there last summer, we went out there and looked around. And my house changed because I hadn't been there in many years. But we did have a cabin there. It wasn't a cabin, it was a cottage. And
what's the difference between a cottage and a cabin?
well, I guess generally a cabin is, you think of logs. But this was, had studs and siding on it, you know, wood siding, and big, huge openings for air. And then what we used was canvas. We'd take off these big big wooded covers for the space and put up what did I say? Leather. No, not leather. Canvas covers. And then we had poles that fit in little holes. Mm-hmm. And if it rained, you went outside and took those covers and put a shorter stick on it.
Hmm.
And it seemed to do the job pretty well.
And you were out there all summer?
Uh, for early on, yes. Somewhere there may be a picture of me in here sitting. If not here, it's at home. A picture of me as a baby sitting on a blanket outside of this cabin.
And
Outside.
how old was he when he got married? Or do you know what year he got married in?
Yes, he got married in I was born in 1922, and he got married, I think, about 3 years before that. But he married a nurse, a registered nurse from Swedish Hospital in Minneapolis, where he used to take patients when they needed hospitalization. And she worked with him with patients and in the office, and they were married in I think it was after World War I, so I can't give you an exact date.
But his first wife died.
Yes, his first wife died in childbirth, and the baby died. And they were at a hospital too, I believe in Albert Lee. That's where they cared for her. But something went haywire. I wish I knew more about this, but I don't know like I should.
Did he have any children that lived from the first marriage?
No. Nope. No. And then when Bill was there last summer, we went out to the old church and the old cemetery, which is bordering St. Olaf Lake. And that's where they used to go to Sunday school and church, and they'd drive wagons there and carriages. And there was no high school in New Richland, and if there was, it would have been from where he lived, a 4-mile trip every day. But that's why he went to the academy at St. Olaf College. And then he went into the college as soon as he got out of the academy.
So now your mom was his second wife?
Yes.
What was your mom's name?
Louise Christine Leaf.
Ah.
My first name is Leaf. And that's where it comes from. I think in Sweden, that was Liffe. And then when they came here, her family, she was born here. But when her parents and a couple of older kids came here, they changed their name from Liffe to Leaf.
Mm.
And she was born in Keokuk, Iowa, and went to school there, went to high school there, and then she went into nurses training in Swedish Hospital in Minneapolis, graduating in 1917, I think, or 18. Do you remember the date on her graduation, Pim?
No.
It was either 1917 or 1918.
Hmm.
And she was a nurse during the war in Minneapolis. It was until after the war that she met my dad.
Hmm.
And I think they were married in New Ulm, Minnesota. I don't know why, but I think I saw something to that effect. Now we had 2 boys and a girl, and I saw the picture of the 2 boys here. in front of our house. That's my brother on this side. His name is Calvin Rodney, and that's me over here. We both were in Naval Air Cadets, and he graduated. I didn't. I just couldn't land an airplane the way the Navy wanted. And he was a pretty good pilot, I guess. He must have been, because he was engaged as an instructor. And
Was he older than you?
no, he was 2 years younger than me.
You're the oldest?
Yep. And this is the front of our house, and I want to tell you, those trees should have been trimmed.
Let me see.
But by that time, my dad, you see, this is 1942 probably, and my dad, I don't think, was able to do the work around the house that he formerly did. But that was a nice house.
Where was that? In New Ulm, you said?
No, this is in New Richland.
Okay.
New Richland, Minnesota. And what you see there is the front porch, the front door, and also a three-season porch there. And when it got hot in the summer, there was no air conditioning in those days. I used to sleep on a day bed out here, a day cot. You just pick it up and lift it over, and my brother and I could sleep on that, and with ventilation from 1, 2, 3 sides. It was a lot cooler than upstairs in the house. Yeah.
And what was your sister's name?
Audrey Jane Hagen.
And how much younger was she?
She was 2 years younger than my brother.
So 2 years between each.
2, 4, 6. That's right.
And are they still living?
Yes, she's still living in Elgin, Illinois.
That's where Audrey is?
That's right. That's where Audrey is, and she's got a daughter there, and she's got a daughter in California, and they're all married, and a daughter in Rye, New Hampshire.
So she has 3 daughters?
And a son. And the son is just outside of Boston. They were all raised in Boston. I don't think any of them were in the service. I don't remember them being in this. Well, it would probably have been only the boy, and I know he wasn't. And but all the rest of them are still around there.
And what about your brother? Is he still alive?
My brother? No, he died of cancer 8 years ago.
What kind of cancer did he have?
More than that.
10 years ago. What kind of cancer did he have? We visited him in the Veterans Hospital in Minneapolis the night before he died. And he labored very much in breathing. He just gasped for air. I think he had lung cancer from smoking. He was a terrible smoker. And,
did he have any kids?
yep, he had a boy and a couple girls.
Steve was the boy, wasn't it?
Steve was the boy, that's right. And we went to one of his sons, one of his daughter's graduation about 3 years ago. No, we didn't go to graduation. We were invited to their house for housewarming or whatever you want to call it. And we just never saw them very much, partially because they were brought up in southern Minnesota for several years. And And when they came to Minneapolis, it was just not, we just didn't get to see him like I wish we would have or we should have. My mother was with my daughter in Elgin, Illinois, and she got sick, and she came to Minneapolis and got in the veterans home, and proceeded to get forgetful, that type of thing. And she had lots of physical ails because she was past 80, and she died there. And I wish I could give you the date. If I was home, I could. But we used to see her quite frequently when she was in the nursing home. And then she went from the nursing home. No, I guess she went from the veterans home to the nursing home because they couldn't take care of her at the veterans home.
This is your mom?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And she died in a hospital there.
And how old was your dad when he died?
Boy, I think he wasn't quite as old as she. He was 76, 7 years old.
What did he die of?
Heart problems. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty much the end of...
Where is he? Are they buried together?
Yes, they're buried together in the Lutheran Cemetery in New Richland, Minnesota. My dad was not buried out in the farm area where he was raised. When Bill was down there last summer, we went down and we must have looked at 30 Hagen headstones, and we found my grandpa's and my grandmother's, and some of my dad's half brothers and their families. But it was awful hard to. Some of the stones were hard to decipher.
Right.
Weathered.
Did you ever meet your grandfather or your grandmother?
I met my grandmother on my mother's side, but not the ones on my dad's side.
They'd already passed away?
That's right. Mm-hmm. Yes, back when I probably did when I was a kid, but I don't ever remember meeting them.
Right.
I never remember sitting on Grandpa's lap, for example.
Right.
Things were different in those days, although family life was much the same. But it wasn't that kind of a family. I think they were just a little jealous of my dad. He went to college and graduated, and he was the only one.
Now, why do you suppose that was?
Well, he got off from the hard work on the farm, and it was hard work. They raised horses, and as I told you earlier, and I told him about driving a herd of horses to Browns Valley, Minnesota. And it's even possible that it could have been some of your grandparents, but we can't find anything to that.